Please comment where you are watching in the world. I matched with Dylan on a Sunday afternoon, half bored, half hopeful. He seemed straight up, normal, nothing screamed red flags to me. So yeah, as safe as I can be. We messaged for a few days, easy flirty banter, and eventually set up drinks at a pub near his place. Nothing fancy. Nothing serious. Just a casual first date. Or so I thought. When I showed up, Dylan was already there, leaning against the bar, 2 beers waiting. He looked like his pictures, messy brown hair, slightly crooked smile, that kind of laid-back charm that made it easy to relax. We talked, laughed, had a few drinks. Everything felt easy, uncomplicated. Then about an hour in, he leaned in, almost conspiratorial. "You want to come back to mine for a bit?" he said, grinning. "It's just around the corner." I hesitated. Normally I wouldn't. First dates and private spaces don't mix well. But he seemed harmless, charming even. And it was early. What was the worst that could happen? His flat was a typical bachelor pad, dim lighting, mismatched furniture, the faint, lingering smell of incense trying, and failing, to cover something less pleasant. Still, nothing overtly alarming. I perched on the edge of the couch while Dylan grabbed us another drink. That's when I noticed the second bedroom door was open. Inside, a man was standing there, watching. He was older than Dylan, maybe early 30s. Shaggy hair, pale skin, eyes sharp and assessing. He didn't smile, didn't say anything, just stared. I shifted uncomfortably. Dylan returned, handing me a drink, and followed my gaze. "Oh, that's just Nate," he said casually. "My flatmate." Nate didn't move, didn't blink. I forced a polite smile. "Hi." No response, just more staring. I turned back to Dylan, tried to ignore the knot tightening in my stomach. He sat down next to me, a little closer than before, and raised his glass. "To new friends," he said. I clinked mine against his, barely sipping. The room felt too small now. Too warm. Too wrong. Dylan leaned in again, voice low. "So, Nate's cool, right?" I frowned. "Cool about what?" He grinned, a slow, lazy grin that made my skin crawl. "We were thinking," he said, "maybe you'd be up for something, a little more fun." I stared at him, not understanding, not wanting to understand. He nudged my knee with his. "You know, both of us. No pressure." My stomach turned. Hard. I put my drink down carefully. Stood up. Every nerve in my body screaming. "I think I should go," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. Dylan's smile faltered. "Come on," he said, standing too. "Don't be like that. It's just a bit of fun." Behind him, Nate stepped out of his doorway, blocking the hall, blocking the exit. My heart slammed into overdrive. "I'm leaving," I said louder now. Dylan's face darkened. "Don't be a bitch about it," he snapped. I moved fast, dodging around the couch, heading for the door. Nate didn't budge, didn't move, just watched. Dylan grabbed my arm. I yanked it free. "Touch me again and I'll scream," I said, voice shaking with rage and terror. That made him pause, just long enough for me to shove past Nate, who let me, surprisingly, and bolt out the door. I didn't stop, didn't look back. Ran all the way down the street, heart hammering, breath burning in my throat. Only when I reached a crowded main road did I dare to slow down. Did I dare to breathe? I blocked Dylan's number the second I got home. Reported him on the app. Told my friends everything, every ugly, terrifying detail. And for days afterward, I jumped at every unexpected knock on the door. It was just a bad date. An awkward dinner, a few strained jokes, too many silences stretched thin across the table. Nothing dramatic. Nothing worth remembering. At least, that's what I thought. Until he started waiting. His name was Marcus. We met on Plenty of Fish. He picked a local Italian place near my flat. I figured it was convenient. In hindsight, yes, that was definitely the first red flag. The date was fine. Not terrible. Not great. Marcus talked a lot about himself, his job, his workouts, his ex-girlfriends, plural, and seemed to get irritated any time I disagreed with him, even over stupid things like movie rankings or favorite pizza toppings. By the time the check came, I already knew I wasn't interested. I was polite. I smiled. I said thank you. I even offered to split the bill. But when he leaned in and suggested we keep the night going at his place, I lied and said I had an early morning. He smiled, tight, forced, and said he understood. But something in his eyes flickered, just for a second. Something cold. Something that made my skin crawl. I told myself I was imagining it. Told myself I was overreacting. I was wrong. The first time I saw him, he was parked across the street from my flat. Same car he drove to dinner, a beat-up gray sedan with a cracked windshield. At first, I thought it was a coincidence. Maybe he lived nearby. Maybe he was just running errands. But when I left to grab groceries and saw him still sitting there an hour later, engine idling, staring straight ahead, my stomach twisted into knots. I hurried inside, locked the door, peered through the blinds. He didn't move, didn't leave, just sat there, waiting. It happened again the next night, and the next. Always the same, parked across the street, engine humming faintly, lights off, watching. I stopped going out after dark, stopped opening my blinds, started sleeping with a heavy flashlight clutched in my hand like a weapon. I told myself he'd get bored eventually, that he'd move on. But he didn't. He waited. One night, about 2 weeks in, I came home late from work. The street was empty. No gray sedan in sight. I felt a surge of relief so strong it made me dizzy. Maybe it was over. Maybe he'd finally realized how pathetic, how creepy he was being. I climbed the stairs to my flat, keys jingling in my shaking hand. It wasn't until I reached the second floor that I heard it. Footsteps. Heavy. Deliberate. Behind me. I turned. And there he was. Marcus. Standing halfway up the stairs, smiling that same tight, humorless smile. "You've been avoiding me," he said, his voice low and almost playful. I stumbled back a step. Fumbled with my keys. "I think you should leave," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. He tilted his head. "You owe me a real explanation," he said. "After everything we talked about, after everything you promised." "I didn't promise you anything," I said, heart hammering against my ribs. He took a step closer. I bolted. I sprinted up the stairs, taking them 2 at a time, adrenaline blinding me. I could hear him behind me, the heavy thud of his boots hitting the steps, the harsh rasp of his breathing. I reached my door, nearly dropping my keys in my panic, jamming them into the lock with shaking hands. He was close. Too close. I could feel him reaching for me. I shoved the door open, threw myself inside, and slammed it shut just as his hand hit the wood with a sickening thud. I locked it. Deadbolt, chain, latch, every lock I had. He pounded once. Twice. Then silence. I backed away from the door, gasping, heart thundering so loud it drowned out everything else. Grabbed my phone. Dialed 911. The dispatcher answered immediately. I could barely get the words out. "There's a man outside my door," I sobbed. "He's been stalking me. He just chased me up the stairs." "Stay on the line," she said calmly. "Officers are on their way. Do not open the door for any reason." I slid to the floor, back against the wall, phone pressed to my ear like a lifeline. I listened. Listened for footsteps. Listened for breathing. Listened for the sound of him trying to break in. But there was nothing. Just silence. The police arrived 5 minutes later, lights flashing, radios crackling. They searched the building, the surrounding streets. No sign of Marcus. He had vanished. Melted into the night. But the officers didn't dismiss me. Didn't make me feel crazy. They took my statement. Promised to patrol the area more frequently. Suggested I stay with a friend for a few days, just to be safe. I nodded, numb, barely hearing them. You always think you'll notice when something's wrong. Think there'll be a flashing neon sign, a gut punch of instinct, a voice screaming in your head. Run. But sometimes it's quieter than that. Sometimes it's just a funny taste in your drink. Or a stranger's eyes lingering too long. Or a text you almost didn't see. And if you're lucky, if you're very, very lucky, you catch it in time. His name was Tim. We met the usual way, a dating app, half-hearted swipes between work meetings and Netflix binges, a few dry conversations that fizzled out before they ever got interesting. And then there was Tim, with his awkward smile and his too polite messages and his bio that said, "Looking for something real." He seemed harmless. Boring maybe, but harmless. And after a string of disastrous first dates, one guy who wouldn't stop talking about crypto, another who cried over his ex mid-dinner, harmless sounded like a goddamn dream. So when Tim asked if I wanted to grab drinks, I said yes. Because how bad could it be? We met at a cozy little bar tucked away downtown, dim lighting, battered leather booths, a jukebox that hadn't worked in years. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table, fiddling with a coaster. He stood up when he saw me, points for manners, and gave me a quick, awkward hug that smelled faintly of too much cologne and nerves. "Hey Alice, right?" he said, smiling. "Yeah," I said, smiling back. His voice was steady, his hands only slightly shaky. Nervous, I thought. Sweet. We ordered drinks, whiskey sour for me, beer for him, and settled into easy, if slightly stilted, conversation. He asked about my job, my family, my favorite movies. Nothing weird. Nothing creepy. Just normal first date small talk. The drinks arrived. He raised his glass. "To new beginnings," he said. I clinked mine against his. Took a sip. Smiled. Maybe for once, this wouldn't be a disaster. Maybe for once, I'd have a story that didn't end with me blocking someone's number and swearing off dating forever. Maybe. About 20 minutes in, he excused himself to use the bathroom. "Be right back," he said, patting my hand in a way that was almost fatherly. I watched him weave through the crowded bar, disappearing down a hallway toward the restrooms. I checked my phone, no new messages, and absent-mindedly stirred my drink with the little black straw. That's when I saw it. A text. From an unknown number. I almost ignored it. Almost swiped it away without reading. But something, curiosity, boredom, fate, made me open it. And what I saw made my blood run cold. "Don't drink anything. He dropped something in your glass." I stared at the message, heart thudding so hard I thought I might pass out. I looked at my drink, the whiskey sour, the ice swirling lazily, and suddenly the slight bitterness on my tongue didn't seem normal anymore. Suddenly, every hair on my body stood on end. I set the glass down carefully. Looked around. The bar was busy but not packed, groups of friends laughing too loud, couples leaning in close, the bartender wiping down the counter with slow, bored movements. No one was looking at me. No one seemed to notice anything wrong. Except someone did. Someone had seen. Someone had warned me. But who? And why? I stood up, legs shaky beneath me, and made my way to the bar. The bartender, a woman about my age, with bright blue hair and a nose ring, looked up as I approached. "Can I help you?" she asked. I leaned in close, lowering my voice. "Did you see the guy I was with?" She nodded slowly. "Yeah. Tall, brown hair, plaid shirt." "Did you see him do anything to my drink?" She hesitated, wiped her hands on a towel. "I didn't," she said carefully. "But someone else did. Sent me that message for you." My stomach twisted. "Who?" She shook her head. "Said they wanted to stay anonymous. Just told me to make sure you got the warning." I gripped the edge of the bar, trying to steady myself. "Can you call the police?" She nodded, already reaching for the phone. I glanced back at the table. Tim was returning from the bathroom, weaving through the crowd with a relaxed smile, like nothing was wrong, like he hadn't just tried to drug me. My drink was still sitting there, untouched. Waiting. I turned away before he could see me. Slipped behind a group of tourists arguing over directions. Made my way to the back exit, heart hammering. The bartender caught my eye, gave me a quick nod. Help was coming. I just had to stay hidden. Stay safe. I crouched behind a dumpster in the alley, the cold air biting through my jacket, the smell of old beer and grease clogging my nose. My phone buzzed. Another message from the unknown number. "Good. Stay out of sight. Police are on the way." I typed back with shaking fingers. "Who are you?" No response. I tucked the phone into my pocket, clutching it like a lifeline. Minutes felt like hours. Every sound, footsteps, laughter, the slam of a car door, made me flinch. I kept expecting Tim to come bursting out of the bar, furious, searching, dragging me back inside. But he didn't. The police arrived 5 minutes later, sirens off, lights flashing low and steady. 2 officers, a man and a woman, approached the bar, speaking to the bartender, to the manager, to a few patrons. I stayed hidden, waiting. Watching. Finally, the female officer spotted me. Crouched in the alley like a stray cat. She approached slowly, hands visible, voice soft. "Are you Alice?" I nodded. She knelt down beside me. "You're safe now," she said. "We've got him." I felt my knees buckle. Felt the tears come, hot, unwanted, unstoppable. She helped me to my feet. Led me into the back of the squad car. Wrapped a blanket around my shoulders. Later, at the station, they told me everything. Tim had a record, minor offenses, mostly, nothing that would have raised a red flag on a dating app background check. But there were rumors. Stories. Whispers about other women. Other nights. Nothing proven. Nothing reported. Until now. They tested my drink. Found traces of something, a sedative, fast-acting, odorless, tasteless once diluted. If I'd taken just one more sip, I probably wouldn't have made it home. Would have blacked out right there in the booth. Would have woken up somewhere else, if I woke up at all. The first time I saw my own wedding photos, I wasn't even engaged. Hell, I wasn't even dating anyone. But there I was, white dress, veil, bouquet, smiling up at a man I had never seen before in my life. And that was just the beginning. It started with a text from my cousin. A simple, "Hey, didn't know you got married. Congrats." Attached was a screenshot, a Facebook post, dozens of pictures, hundreds of likes and comments. I stared at it for a long time, my brain refusing to process what I was seeing. Because it was me. Not someone who looked like me. Not a blurry, distant shot. It was my face, my eyes, my mouth, every detail perfect, pasted onto someone else's life. The caption read, "Best day of my life. Married my soulmate." The man beside me wore a tuxedo and a grin I didn't recognize. I tried to click the profile, but it was private, locked down tight. The only thing I could see was the name, Anna Blake. Not my name, not even close, but my face, my body, my laugh, captured in stolen seconds. My life, rewritten by hands I couldn't see. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. A scam maybe. Someone fishing for attention or money, or whatever else people crave online. But the more I dug, the worse it got. There were videos too, short, shaky clips showing me dancing at the wedding, cutting the cake, kissing the groom. The movements were jerky, almost puppet-like, but if you didn't look too closely, they seemed real. Real enough. And the comments, God, the comments, were full of congratulations from strangers. People who believed it, who believed I was her. I reported everything, of course. Filed complaints, flagged the posts, messaged the platform's support team until my fingers cramped. But the wheels of the internet turned slow, and the damage was already done. The images were out there, spreading, growing, taking on a life of their own. I started getting messages from people I didn't know. Men mostly. Some congratulating me. Some, less polite. Some sending things that made my skin crawl and my stomach turn. All of them convinced they knew me. That they had the right to talk to me like that. That they owned a piece of me now. Because once your image is out there, it stops being yours. It belongs to them. To the viewers. To the voyeurs. To the ones who don't care if it's real, only if it's available. Things escalated fast. Someone found my real social media accounts. Started commenting on old photos, calling me Anna, congratulating me, asking about my husband, demanding updates. When I locked my accounts, they found my work email. When I changed that, they found my phone number. I started getting calls at all hours, whispers, laughter, threats. I stopped answering the phone altogether. Stopped leaving my apartment after dark. Stopped trusting the reflection I saw in the mirror. Because every time I looked, I half expected her to wink back at me. Anna, the fake bride, the ghost in my skin. I went to the police. Filed a report. Sat through endless, exhausting meetings with detectives who barely hid their confusion, their skepticism, their boredom. "It's probably just a prank," one of them said with a shrug. "Don't engage," another advised. "These things usually blow over." But it didn't blow over. It got worse. One night, I came home to find a package sitting on my doorstep. No return address. Just my name, my real name, scrawled in shaky black ink. I knew I shouldn't open it. Knew I should call someone. But curiosity won. Curiosity always wins. Inside was a wedding album. A real one. Heavy leather-bound, full of high-gloss photos. Page after page of me, or the thing wearing my face, posing with the mystery groom, smiling at invisible guests, dancing under fairy lights. And on the last page, a handwritten note. "See you soon, Mrs. Blake." My hands went numb. I dropped the album. Locked every door and window. Called the police again. They sent a patrol car to cruise by once or twice, but I could tell they didn't take it seriously. Another crazy girl crying about the internet. Another attention seeker. Another waste of time. I started sleeping with the lights on. Started jumping at every sound. Started carrying pepper spray everywhere I went. Because even if he wasn't real, even if Anna wasn't real, someone behind all this was. Someone who knew where I lived. Who knew what I looked like. Who wanted me to be his bride, whether I agreed or not. The breaking point came 2 weeks later. I was walking home from the grocery store, head down, keys clutched tight between my fingers like little makeshift knives, when I saw him. Standing across the street. Watching me. The groom. The man from the pictures. He wasn't smiling now. He was just staring, blank, hollow, like he was waiting for something. Waiting for me. I froze. My mind screamed at me to run, but my legs wouldn't move. He took a step forward. I bolted, ran the last 2 blocks home, heart pounding, groceries forgotten, breath burning in my lungs. Locked the door. Called the police. Again. But by the time they arrived, he was gone. Like he'd never been there at all. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Or the next. I started seeing him everywhere, in crowds, in reflections, in the corner of my eye. I started hearing whispers when no one was around. Started finding little gifts left outside my door, wilted flowers, broken jewelry, torn scraps of wedding veils. I was unraveling, falling apart. And the worst part, I didn't know if it was real. Didn't know if he was real. Or if Anna, that fake, smiling version of me, had finally taken root inside my head. I moved, changed my name, deleted everything, started over in a new city, a new state, a new life. But some nights, when the wind howls just right, I still hear the soft rustle of a wedding dress behind me. Still catch glimpses of a man in a tuxedo standing just out of reach. You ever sit across from someone and realize, mid-bite, mid-sentence, mid-fake laugh, that not only are you not on the same page, you're not even in the same damn book? That was me that night, chewing on overpriced pasta, watching a man prioritize an action movie on a tiny, cracked iPad over my existence, and wondering how I had ended up starring in the dumbest horror movie of my life. And trust me, it only got weirder from there. It started like most of my mistakes do: boredom, bad judgment, and a dating app at 2 in the morning. His name was Kyle. Profile picture? Grainy gym selfie. Bio? Movies people. Prove me wrong. I should have known. I should have known. But he was cute in a lopsided way. Messy brown hair, dimples that looked dangerous, a kind of I don't give a damn smirk that made me think, maybe he's just being ironic. Spoiler, he wasn't. We messaged a few times, short, clipped sentences that barely counted as conversation. And somehow, I still agreed to meet him for dinner. Maybe I thought it would be easy. Low stakes. A quick date, maybe a funny story to tell later. I didn't realize I was walking into a performance where I wasn't even the audience. I was just background noise. The restaurant was one of those trendy fusion spots. Dim lighting, exposed brick walls, tables packed too close together, waiters who looked like they were one bad Yelp review away from snapping. Kyle was already there when I arrived, hunched over the table, tapping furiously on his phone like he was trying to beat a world record. He barely looked up when I sat down. I gave him a polite smile. He nodded vaguely, still typing. Not a great start, but whatever. Maybe he was wrapping up something important. Maybe he was just socially awkward. I ordered a drink. Waited. Finally, he set his phone down, and that's when he pulled out the iPad. Not discreetly. Not sheepishly. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. He plopped it right onto the table with a heavy thud, tilted it toward himself, and hit play. And there it was, a blaring action movie, full volume, no headphones, explosions rattling the silverware. I stared at him. He didn't even flinch. Just stabbed at his salad like this was Tuesday night business as usual. You mind? I said, trying to keep my voice light, trying to pretend I wasn't already internally screaming. He looked up briefly, just long enough to shrug. Nah, it's cool, he said. I multitask. Right. Because nothing says getting to know you like Vin Diesel screaming about family while your date ignores you. I should have left. I know. Any sane person would have. But something kept me glued to that seat. Morbid curiosity, stubborn pride, or maybe just the sheer surreal horror of it all. I wanted to see how bad it could get. Spoiler, worse. The waiter came over, clearly trying not to stare at the blaring movie. Kyle ordered without looking at the menu, just rattled off something complicated and expensive, then waved the waiter away like he was an annoying commercial. I ordered whatever my eyes landed on first, too flustered to think. The movie roared on. Kyle chuckled at something on screen, shoving a forkful of greens into his mouth without even glancing at me. So, I tried, desperate to salvage anything. What do you do for work? He snorted. Freelance, he said, eyes still glued to the screen. Freelance what? I asked. He waved his fork vaguely. Stuff. Helpful. Incredibly informative. I took a sip of my drink, already mentally drafting the text I was going to send my best friend under the table. Call me with an emergency. But before I could, Kyle shifted, finally looking at me, and said, You ever think about how fake dates are? I blinked. I'm sorry. He leaned back, smirking. Like this whole thing. It's fake. Forced. Everyone's pretending to be more interesting than they are. It's exhausting. I stared at him, stunned. He wasn't wrong. Dating could be a mess of masks and half-truths. But the way he said it, like it was some grand revelation, like he was above it all while still participating badly, made my skin crawl. So why bother? I asked, genuinely curious. He shrugged. Content. I frowned. Content. He grinned, tapping the iPad. Recording this. For my channel. My stomach dropped. You're filming me? He rolled his eyes. Relax. It's just background. Nobody cares about the girl. Nobody cares about the girl. Like I wasn't even human. Just scenery. Just filler between explosions and car chases. I felt my face flush hot, with anger, with humiliation, with the sick, sinking realization that I wasn't on a date, I was an extra. Unpaid, uncredited, unimportant. The food arrived. Kyle dug in without ceremony, barely pausing his movie. I sat there, hands shaking under the table, trying to decide whether to throw my drink in his face or just walk out. In the end, I chose silence. I ate 2 bites, left a 20 on the table, and stood up. Kyle barely noticed. Too busy laughing at some CGI monstrosity on his screen. I walked out into the night, the cold air slapping my face, my heart hammering against my ribs. I half expected him to chase after me. Apologize. Say something. Anything. But when I glanced back through the restaurant window, he was still there. Headphones finally in, eyes glazed over, lost in his own pathetic little fantasy world. In the days that followed, I kept waiting for the video to surface. Kept checking YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, terrified that I'd see my own face in some blurry background, immortalized as girl who walked out, or worst date ever, or something even worse. But nothing ever showed up. Maybe he realized it was a bad idea. Maybe he got bored. Maybe I was too uninteresting even for his desperate content machine. Whatever the reason, the internet moved on. And I moved on too. Older. Wiser. Colder. Now, whenever people talk about bad dates, the guys who ghost, who overshare, who show up reeking of Axe body spray and broken dreams, I smile. Because at least those guys were present. At least they looked at you. At least they saw you. Not like Kyle. Not like the ones who are so busy recording their lives they forget to live them. Forget you're real. Forget you're there. Nobody ever thinks the person laughing at your jokes, holding your hand, memorizing the way you take your coffee is secretly building a version of themselves just for you, and building different ones for everyone else. Nobody thinks that until it's too late. Her name was Elise. Or at least, that's what she told me. We met the usual way, online, where everything is curated, cropped, filtered, where you're not meeting a person, you're meeting a presentation. And even though I thought I was careful, even though I thought I was skeptical, she still got under my skin faster than anyone ever had. Her profile was simple but charming. A few candid shots, laughing with friends, hiking somewhere green and wild, curled up with a giant orange cat, and a bio that just said, "Looking for someone who feels like home." It wasn't the flashiest, but something about it felt real, raw in a way that most profiles weren't. And when she messaged me first, when she made the first move with a simple, "You seem like trouble," the good kind, I was hooked before I even realized it. We talked for hours that first night, messages pouring back and forth, long and breathless and stupidly thrilling. And it didn't take long before we graduated to calls, then to video chats, each conversation leaving me more tangled up in her than the last. She was funny in a way that didn't feel rehearsed, sharp-witted but never cruel, asking all the right questions and listening so closely it made me want to tell her things I hadn't even told my best friends. And when she laughed, it was like a match struck inside my chest, flaring hot and fast and desperate. After a few weeks, we met in person, a little dive bar tucked away on a side street, the kind of place with sticky floors, cheap beer, and a jukebox that only worked half the time. And when I saw her standing there, nursing a whiskey sour and scanning the room with those dark, curious eyes, I swear the whole world tilted on its axis. She looked just like her pictures, better, even, but more than that, she felt real, solid, magnetic in a way that made everything else blur at the edges. And when she smiled at me, slow and knowing, it was already too late. I was gone. We fell into each other like we were made for it. Long, messy weekends tangled up in bed, lazy mornings sharing coffee and half-hearted plans, late nights walking the empty streets, talking about everything and nothing until the sun started to rise. And for the first time in years, I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, I'd found something real. She never pushed too hard, never rushed anything, but she always kept me close. Little texts at odd hours, random pictures of things that made her think of me, casual mentions of our future like it was a given. And every time I started to doubt, started to wonder if it was too good to be true, she'd pull me back in with a look, a touch, a kiss that made me forget how to breathe. It wasn't perfect. There were little things, of course, little cracks I tried not to look too closely at, like how she never wanted me to come to her place, always insisting on mine or neutral spots, like how she dodged certain questions with a laugh and a kiss, like how she sometimes disappeared for hours or days with flimsy excuses. But I told myself not to be paranoid, told myself that trust meant letting go of the need to know every little thing. I told myself that love meant believing her. I was wrong. It started with a message I wasn't supposed to see. Her phone buzzed while she was in the shower, a simple notification preview popping up on the lock screen. And I wasn't trying to snoop, wasn't trying to invade her privacy, but my eyes caught it anyway. A name I didn't recognize. A message that said, "Miss you already, babe." My stomach dropped. I told myself it was a mistake, a wrong number, a joke, something harmless. But when she came out of the bathroom, wrapped in my towel, hair dripping down her back, I couldn't stop myself from asking, "Who's Max?" She froze, just for a second, but it was enough. Enough for the bottom to fall out of everything. She smiled, casual, easy, like she hadn't just stabbed me in the gut. "Just a friend," she said, shrugging. "You're being silly." I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to. But something cold and sharp had planted itself in my chest, and it wouldn't let go. The next few weeks were a slow, sick spiral. Little things started adding up, lies that didn't quite line up, stories that changed in the retelling, tiny inconsistencies that gnawed at me like termites. She was always just a little bit out of reach, always somewhere else, doing something she couldn't quite explain, with people she never introduced me to. I tried to confront her once, tried to ask calmly, reasonably, if there was something she wasn't telling me, and she laughed, kissed me, told me I was overthinking everything, told me I was ruining a good thing, told me she loved me. And like an idiot, I believed her, at least for a little while longer. The truth came crashing down in the worst way. One night, after she bailed on another plan with another vague excuse, I got a DM from a stranger, a girl named Sam who said she needed to talk to me about Elise. I almost ignored it, almost deleted it without reading. But something, curiosity, dread, spite, made me open it. The message was short. "She's not who you think she is. Check this." Attached was a link. I clicked. And there she was, my Elise, wrapped around some other guy, laughing in a way that looked sickeningly familiar, saying all the same things she used to say to me. Only the guy wasn't me, and neither was the next one, or the next, or the girl after that, or the one after her. Turns out, Elise wasn't just dating around. She was living entire lives. Different names, different backstories, different personalities, tailored to whatever her target wanted most. For me, she was the wild spirit, the one who needed freedom and adventure and late-night confessions. For another guy, she was the sweet, shy homebody who dreamed of marriage and a white picket fence. For a woman across town, she was a tortured artist looking for a muse. She didn't just lie, she became the lie. Seamlessly, effortlessly, leaving behind a trail of broken hearts and shattered trust like it was nothing. I confronted her, of course. Cornered her outside my building one night, heart hammering, hands shaking. She didn't run, didn't cry, didn't even look surprised. She just smiled, that same slow, knowing smile that had undone me the first night we met, and said, "I told you I was looking for someone who feels like home. I just didn't say how many homes I needed." And then she walked away, like she hadn't just detonated my entire world. Like I was nothing more than another chapter in a story she'd already finished writing. I spent months after that trying to put myself back together, trying to figure out how I missed it, how I let myself be played so completely, trying to scrub the taste of her out of my mouth, the sound of her laugh out of my ears, the ghost of her touch off my skin. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It wasn't the lies. It wasn't even the humiliation. It was knowing that somewhere out there, she was doing it again, slipping into someone else's life like a knife between ribs, wearing a new mask, telling new lies, building new worlds destined to collapse. And none of them would see it coming. Just like I didn't.